What's up, miniatures paintbrushes? And this is Rob, your host, and welcome to Terrain Tutorials. Welcome back, TMP fans, and must I say, that edge highlighting you're doing, oof, magnifique. Today we're going to paint up a thermal plasma regulator, and it's going to be part of our Sector Munitorum table that we are creating for the channel. So without further ado, let's go down to Table Town and check out how it's done. All right, so starting with some jet exhaust from Vallejo metal color, and I'm using this very throwaway brush, and I got them for like a 100 pack for like $20 or so. It wasn't expensive at all, and you use that for metallic paints because you kind of ruin your brushes. So then I painted all the wires different kind of colors, and I just got in there. I wasn't way too neat. I tried to be as neat as possible though. All right, time for some blade weathering. I have an entire video on blade weathering if you'd like to check it out in my past catalog. And what I'm using is the flat of the brush to be able to do that. I wanted to show you how I'm scraping it without damaging the surface there. Just slowly going into it and using the flat of the, like as if you're moving mold lines or something like that, the flat of your hobby knife to be able to do that. Now I do that before I put in any of the washes and the recesses there. And that's key because you don't want curled up paint to fall into the wash and then melding it together. It doesn't look good. Okay, so just using a fairly throwaway brush for the wash. And the wash that I use is a wash that I made. You can use any wash whatsoever, but that's just Flow Aid ink and Flow Improver ink and some water. That's pretty much it. Very simple to get that wash gun. And I didn't measure anything. I just did it until it felt right. I also put on some sepia in there. But that turned green after a while. It's kind of greenish. Okay, some Mephiston red. Nothing special here, just a straight base coat with my airbrush, just spraying it back and forth until it became red. There was nothing special. But I do like Mephiston red. It gets that deep red, especially since I want to go really dark with the red. And that's a great place to start. All right, back to the jet exhaust, and I'm going to paint in all of the nubs and gibs as much as possible. This was a lot of fun because I love the coverage that Vallejo metal color puts onto the surfaces, and it really is like, liquid talent because it's like, oh, look, it's metal. The end, because the pigment is ground down so finely with Vallejo metal color that you get this great reflection, and it seems in scale to the actual miniature that we're painting here because the flakes are so ground down, it kind of looks just metal. It just works, And if you want to add some contrast to it, you get some Vallejo metal color chrome and lightly dust it here and there on the highlights just to get it, a nice little shine to it. It really does a great job. But again, nothing is shiny and new here. Maybe here and there, maybe I actually get some chains later on that I do that too, only because chains are moving and it would scrape some of the rust off and then it'll have that new metal underneath. But this stuff, I say that, it may be a regulator, but it's not really cleaned very often. So it's not really shiny and bright. It's just that dirty kind of steel, and that's why I want to go for a very, very dark kind of metal here. And I love this color. Like I really do. I'm very comfortable with it. One thing is though, when you get too comfortable with a paint, of course you can use it if you're painting an army and everything else. But if you want to challenge yourself as a painter, try to switch it up from now and then, like change the regular colors. Because I think we all do have it as artists, as painters. We have what works on our desk and we neglect all the other paints that we have if we buy sets of paints, and this is certainly, a lot of people just want to get the paints that they need to paint their model and that's it. But if you want to expand your repertoire and grow as a painter, I highly recommend you getting several paints from different lines and trial and error, or watch some videos where people use and compare them. I really do like those videos that they have with contrast paints versus, clear paints, army painter paints, all these kinds of other paints that are that way too, because there's certain colors that are more vibrant and others that are just completely what you would need or what you definitely don't need within a paint. So it used to be that I used to just get complete sets of paints and call it a day. For example, if I were to get a Vallejo metal line, I would get all the metal colors, which I did. I have a lot of Vallejo metal color in reserve. And I did a lot of the same there for model color from Vallejo and game color, which they have changed their formula, but I still have a lot of game color that I want to use, and I want to use it up before I, go on and paint something else or pick up another line. I am intrigued by the Chimera paints as well. All right, there it is, that dark metal with that dark red. I think it looks fantastic. And now time for some gold. Now the gold here, I had to shake out quite a bit, but it goes on very loosely. It's like it wasn't a one coat deal. I had to coat it at least 3 times for it to really take. So I'm going to spare you all the other coats. I'll just show you what I'm painting here. It's just simply the signs, like the really flashy signs. And I love how gold is yellow and then red, how it really pops next to each other. I really do like that. So yeah, I do paint those things flashy gold, and I dirty them up later on. Speaking of yellow, I'm going to paint this wire and a couple of wires yellow, but I'm going to vary it up in the colors when it comes to the wires. So here I'm being ultra careful. As you can see there, and again, another throwaway brush. It's just, I like to use throwaway brushes for most of my stuff. I use my fine brushes for eyes or little hair or something like that. But I do get these really cheap brushes for a lot of the work that I do when it comes to miniature painting, because I absolutely tear my brushes up. I do. I tear my brushes up, and I don't want to tear up my expensive ones. All right, time for some Warboss Green, which I picked up. This is not a color I'm used to using, so I just wanted to throw that in there and see what kind of thing would come out and how it would, pop against the other colors. And again, I'm trying new paints. I have a lot of paint that just doesn't get used because I am so accustomed to using just the paints that works for me and I'm comfortable with. But, at the sake of what? Of throwing away old paint at some point, does it go bad? We don't know. We just have to keep on shaking them. And I have a lot of bottles to shake over here. So I kind of want to get through them, and I kind of want to use them. Like, I want to write down a document what colors work for me. Like Sotec Green over here is absolutely amazing. Like, I love that light bluish kind of color. Like, I really do. It's one of my favorite paints. That little tealish kind of paint. I really love it. And it covers so well. It's from Citadel. Citadel does a great job. Games Workshop does a great job with certain kind of paints. Like, I love their Mephiston Red. I love their Sotec Green. There's a couple of paints here that I really do love because of the formula of it, the coverage of it, and how it just pops along the other things. So here I am just painting the wires up. No rhyme or reason, no real color. I didn't want to put an orange next to a red. I put the light blue and then I put an orange next to that because, it's a little contrasting. I don't want two samey colors next to each other because then it just dulls away. So I want something that pops and then something like very contrasty colors next to it. And you don't really get much more contrasty than blue and orange. I mean, there it is. You got that super opposite side of the color wheel kind of thing going there. And that's how a color is going to pop, because it is Wild Rider Red right now, which is a very orange red. And I use it for edge highlighting for red sometimes. Now, I was going to do some edge highlighting on this piece, and I decided, well, I forgot doing it, and then I didn't feel like doing it, and I got lazy. I don't care. My miniatures, I don't paint in the heavy metal style per se, where every inch has to get edge highlighted. To me, it looks great on the table. It doesn't really look realistic. Everything looks like Tron. The Exile Blue from P3 now is going next to the orange. Yeah, so I don't want it to look like Tron every time. I could always go back there and just get some Wild Rider Red and do some edge highlighting to make it pop even more so. But I just really want it. It's terrain. It's going to get messed up. Eventually somebody's going to touch it with their Cheeto hands, and, I'm going to give them the side eye. and they're going to, continue on with the day while they rub off paint. This is what's going to happen. So, I mean, whatever, I want to paint it well enough that it looks pretty amazing on the game table, but I'm not going to enter this piece in some Golden Demon kind of contest. Now, if I were, then I'd really go to town on it. Like if it was a backdrop for a diorama that I was doing or something like that. And terrain from 40K is really good for that purpose. Expensive, but really good for that purpose. But this one here is less expensive when it comes to buying your terrain from Citadel. I mean, I got it for pretty cheap as compared to all the other terrains that you were going to get. This is pretty cheap and it's just a fun project. All right, time for some Xandri dust, and that's my base for my skulls right there. And you could do it some mid-tones and stuff like that with it, but I like the Xandri dust starting from like the dark recessed kind of areas, and I am going to hit it with a wash eventually, some Seraphon Sepia. But this is a great base for skulls and whatnot. I like to use that. For the ultra highlight, I use some Screaming Skull, and that's going to come in later as I blend the colors in. But yeah, it's very easy to do skulls because they're organic, so they don't have to be perfect, Doesn't have to, like, a skull can have recesses and dents. It's not perfect. So you have to paint in a non-perfect style in order to make it look realistic. I did the same for the opposite generator there, and I put some Screaming Skull. Now, you can mid-tone this if you want to really get crazy with it. But yeah, I went to some Screaming Skull, and I toned it back down with some Seraphon Sepia, and then I hit it with Screaming Skull again. Some kind of bleached kind of bone there. And yeah, it's really fun to make skeletons because honestly, when it comes to skeletons and bone, you don't have to worry about it so much. You just go to town. Keep in mind that when you're hitting with the Screaming Skull, you kind of want to hit where the light's going to hit, but that's about as careful as you got to get to it. No perfect lines here. All right, time for some Seraphon Sepia, and I am going to soak this sucker here. And, be mindful that I don't over soak and don't pull too much in certain areas, but it'll definitely give it that look that I want to go for, which is really dirty kind of bone. All right. Time for my Micron pen. It's black. This is an 02 because the gaps are pretty large. And I'm just going to do some black lining simply because I can with the Micron pen. You don't have to. Of course, you can do some ink or you hit it with some gloss paint and then do some panel lining and then hit it with matte again. But that's a lot of steps. I could just use the pen and call it a day, right? And that's pretty much it. And that's all I did here. And if you ever forget it, it's super easy just to put some in there. And look at that. It really delineates the crack very well. And when I say cracks, I mean cracks inside the armor panels. All right, some time for some weathering. This is all bright and perfectly blocked in. And there's there's no real zenithal priming or anything like that because most of this stuff right there that I'm painting is going to be underneath the cover. So it's going to be all in shadow anyway. So what is it really going to pop? It's not. What is going to pop is when I put in the plasma glow, and it really does have to pop out and look bright. All right. So yeah, quickly putting in some of that weathering, streaking down, seeing where it would pool. Oh, I missed some of the stuff with the Micron pen. I'm just going to go and do that right there. Right, pretty much. And then I'm going to go back and continue weathering. So sometimes, when I'm painting a miniature, I go back and forth, and it's a process. I mean, do you go back and forth when you paint your miniatures? I mean, let me know in the comments if you're one of those people that just like do this, turn back and say, ooh, I forgot that, and then go back and do it again. All right. Now we're going to do some orange rust effects for game color, Vallejo game color. I water it down and then gently put little streaks in there. And you have to build it up in layers, but man, what a difference does it make? There's a little stippling here and there, just adding some fresh rust where I think fresh rust might be. And it's a great contrast with some old rust. And I'm going to get some streaking rust in just a bit and hit that off as well. But I do that later. And the reason why I do that later is because I want to counteract the plasma glow. All right, time to get this very long ladder. And I'm going to cut it down to fit this space because I think the terrain piece, I needed to define the area a little more. I felt like the platform is pretty plain. It has hanging out there and that's it. And then there's no place to actually climb up or anything like that. And what if a guardsman wants to get up there? And I doubt any of the Space Marines are doing maintenance on these plasma generators. I think it's going to be like, human size or guardsman size people. And they're going to need some ladders. So I am putting on some ladders over here. I think it's a great addition. Plus it matches the rest of the terrain table that I have. All right. And I go back and forth with measuring. No hard measuring there. I didn't actually take out the tape measure. I just put it on flat, see if it stayed flat, and that's it. And then sanded it down to size. And then what I did was I added some wires to this side because this side needed some attention too. I wanted to actually make a lot of stuff come down and like just drip on down. Simply because this side, I didn't add any of the fencing on the top. So I really wanted the lower part to look like it's, just all coming apart. Like there's more content to it. There's more going on with it, more for your eyes to see on the bottom there because there's not as much stuff going on the top side like it is for the other one. All right, so tech green, and I'm going to go the wire in black. I did prime it brown in hindsight. I guess I could have primed this black and it would have saved me a step, but I did it brown just in case I wanted to blade weather anything. I could always go back there with a knife and cut it out. All right, time for some jet exhaust, and I did it around the bands of that wiring there just to have that little effect there. And it was easy to do, very easy to do these things, and I didn't really sub-assemble that. I kind of like put it on there and painted it on there because I'm starting to get a little better at making my sub-assembles a little larger. Like I don't want to have a billion sub-assembles because I'm going to do a lot of larger miniatures like Mortarion, and I have like just about all the Primarchs. I mean, the Lion just got released and sold out. In there, his little guard thing. But yeah, I mean, if I can get all the Primarchs and all the major characters for 40K, I'll do that like separately or something. It'd be kind of cool. All right, time for that plasma glow, taking that perfectly weathered thing and ruining it all. No, it had potential to, but the worst case scenario, I just start over again. This is how I do. I mean, I'm very chill about these things, but I am going to hit it quite lightly with a nice Vallejo model color, light sky blue, right? So it's a sky blue. It's a very light blue, very airy there. I usually use the sky blue for, the ultra highlights for my Space Wolves. This has that blue tinge. And if you want to have blue plasma, here we go. I mean, this is it, right? This is what you need. Speaking of which, I think my Necrons are going to take a little blue plasma. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. My friend did his in purple, and I really like the way it came out purple and black, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think the plasma, the Gauss weapons and stuff like that might be in light blue, but then again, it might be in green. Seriously, because I paint a lot of blue. It's my go-to color and what I feel comfortable with. But in any case, yeah, maybe I'll do green this time for my Necrons and just keep it like that. All right, so hitting it off, not too concerned about overspray here because the overspray here is going to indicate a little bit of, glowing light in the back. So I'm not like intentionally trying to hit the overspray, but I'm letting it naturally occur in the background, just trying to avoid it as much as possible so a lot of overspray doesn't get in there. But I wind up tidying it up later, almost by accident, really. I was playing around with paint and I was playing around with streaking grime. And as I was putting the streaking grime on, I noticed that it gave a great tinge to it. But I'll show you that in just a bit. In our case, you could leave it right here if you want to. I didn't paint the underside of it because I know this one thing for a fact that people are not really going to lift it up out of the table, so they're not really going to see it too much. Now I'm going to paint the middle of this white, and that is a Vallejo model color white. So using that through an airbrush, nice and thin down, and just hitting that plasma in the center there and calling it a day. Airbrushing is really great for plasma glows. I really do like it. All right, time for some AK Interactive streaking grime. And here's what I said. I was playing around with putting some really dark streaking grime because I have already the orange in there, the red in there, and it's very, very dirty, adding this brown to it. And as I was painting, it was actually toning down the bright plasma overspray so that it notices that you actually had a spray going through, but it wasn't a speckled spray that really stood out very much, and it looked like if it was airbrushed. A lot of this, if you looked really closely, really does look like if it was airbrushed, until I hit the streaking grime, and then it just looked like it was just glowing, like just the light creeping over to the other side, which was so cool. And I love this kind of effect. It really gave a fun time for me. And it's totally done by accident, but it just worked. All right. And what I try to do is get as much of that streaking grime off the brush before I hit it on certain areas. And here's she trying to better my brush control by slowly going over areas instead of going and feathering like I'm doing right now. That's really hard for me. I feather a whole bunch. I don't know. I'm trying to get more brush control by just using longer strokes. I don't know. That sounds weird, doesn't it? So there you go. Really good stuff. Streaking grime for the win. Speaking of which, I'm going back with my regular wash, and I'm just dabbing some of that regular wash on there. Not really the streaking grime, because I really don't want to turn it too brown. I want to have a little bit of a green effect. I'm going to throw that in there. And you notice the wires on the bottom, they're just base coated. I didn't Zenithal Prime. I didn't, anything. I just base coated. And now I'm going to put a wash in there, and liquid talent is going to make it do its job, right? So it's going to make it look varied. It's going to at least get some lowlights and highlights and do that as well. Especially, again, not a competition piece, but a really well painted piece. And then I found these chains, and I said this would be perfect. So how would I do rusty chains? Well, I have 3 layers. The first layer is going to be that jet exhaust that I'm going to hit all the way through there. And just liberally putting in there. At first I was thinking maybe I should just have some brown areas to cover, like it looks a little brown rusty. So if I missed an area here or there, I didn't care. But then, I made it as uniform as possible. And I just enjoyed covering most of the entire thing. I would say a good 98% of it is going to be covered in this metal paint. This jet exhaust from Vallejo metal color. And that's going to be the first kind of layer to it. Again, primed in Rattle Can Brown primer, and it's Rust-Oleum Camo Brown. I really love that Rust-Oleum Camo stuff because it's ultra flat. But Rust-Oleum also puts ultra flat other colors like primer, ultra flat primer. And I would get as many colors as possible in that ultra flat primer kind of color, whatever they had available. And I've only seen like whites and grays, but I wish they would have like purples and stuff like that. All right, time for some chrome. Here's the second step, right? The second step to the change is go to put some chrome, and I try to get some of the paint off the brush because I only want to get the tips of the metal piece. Again, it's not brand new shiny. If it was brand new shiny, I would hit all of it like that, just very lightly and almost to the point of dry brushing. This way you can have that brand new effect with the low tones being that dark metal and the high tones being the chrome. But for this one, I just wanted to add here and there very lightly, just getting those chains really, and then almost dry brushing the wheels here and there just for like those edge highlighting for true metallic metal. And it comes out really great. It really adds a lot of depth to it. So I just really wanted to hit that. And then I just want to hit the tip, and I'm just doing a little speckling here, a little dabbing of the paint, because I do like dabbing the paintbrush onto the miniature there just to see if that speckle kind of look to it. It actually looks like it's reflecting light in a weird way, almost like if it's dented or something like that. It's pretty cool. So learning how to do that is pretty awesome. All right, this part is where it gets a little dry brushy. So I'm just wicking all that paint off that I used for everything else, and there's still paint on there. So I'm just going to get a little bit aggressive with that, hit the wheels, hit the edges with that just a little so it can catch some of that pieces in there and really make it like really pop out. But now it's starting to look a little new. And that seems to be an issue for me. So since it's like constantly moving, I wouldn't put a whole bunch of old rust in there, not really grimy rust that it hasn't been. Like if it ceased to move, then I would put grimy rust on it. But this one, I think it's used for, I have no idea. It's 40K. They have ridiculous things for ridiculous reasons. But I use that Vallejo game color, kind of game effects, kind of bright rust, and that super bright orange that I dilute heavily. And I'm just putting little spots here and there. And this is the third part of creating like that rusty effect. And this was like a really great addition. Like it needed something at one point. And I was looking at it and I'm like, man, it's just empty on one side. It really needs something large. And then I found this piece just hanging on the desk because it was just an extra piece that I didn't use when I built the other platforms for the Sector Munitorum project that I'm working on. Speaking of which, I'm going to have an entire terrain board making the Sector Munitorum kind of like ammo depot or something like that, something to that effect. I'm trying to, and maybe somebody in the audience would know, to get a piece of a Night Titan. It could be a leg, it could be an arm, it could be a head, whatever it is. And I kind of want to put it there like it's being worked on or something. It'd be kind of cool if you had that in the diorama. But if I don't actually get a piece, I wouldn't be too nervous about it. I wouldn't be too, nervous is not the right word, disappointed about it. It'll still look really cool. But I just thought maybe if somebody knows and has like an extra leg for a Night Titan or something like that, I would definitely paint it up pretty cool. But it'll definitely look like it's being repaired or something like that. And I know it's not a hive world or whatever you want to call it with the with Valerius Crawl on it. It's not Mars or anything like that, a Forge world. But it's just a Sector Munitorum. Maybe it's on a Forge world. Who do I know? I don't know. I don't know these things. I do know it's going to be pretty technologically cool. All right, going to add this over here. Again, it needed a little something because the other one had like railing on the top, and it was a pretty big railing with a computer screen and everything else. So, I wanted to do something special for this. So I put it on the bottom there, and I think I wound up switching up to the other side because there's like a little overhang there. But yeah, the final one, and the thing is, I don't even glue these because these are so hard in and out that, I can't put it on this way. Well, I'll put it onto the other side. But yeah, they're pretty modular, these pieces, and this is what I like. So yeah, basically I played around with it just a little bit, but look at that. That's pretty cool. It actually adds some depth. There's some wires hanging from both sides, and that's what I'm looking for.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me, and what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me. Take into your hands a plan, your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the hours it takes to get some power. Don't be fucking sour, take a cold shower. Scream until you're louder, work until you're prouder. And fuck all the doubters, they're just your downers. I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown.
Oh man, these things were so fun to paint up and so cool. And I think I got the glow just right, man. And I think adding those little bits like the ladders and the hanging chains and the wires coming down, I think it really added to the piece. I think the piece by itself kind of needed something. It needed some help in order to really define the space. And I think this really defines the space even more so. And I'm going for that thematic red, dark red kind of very old and rusty kind of look, weathered look to my game table. And I think these fit the bill just perfectly. These were super easy to paint up, and I highly recommend them. And in fact, as far as terrain pieces go, they're rather cheap on the Warhammer terrain scale. So you may want to pick one of these up, and they come in a set of 2, just like this. Well, if you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing for more information on painting tutorials and interviews that I do. May you paint every single model to help improve at least one skill, and may your backlog get ever smaller.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yeah, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day.